Welcome to the Vortex Nation podcast, brought to you by lovers of hunting, shooting, public lands, the Second Amendment, and good food.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Hunt Year Round, of our Hunt Year Round series. We're in September. We're having our first remote/internal podcast with our very own Ryan Muckenhirn. He's originally from Minnesota, currently resides in Wisconsin, but I think you could say that South Dakota is his second home.
I would agree.
It's at least the place he probably talks about most.
Agreed. And we have done a remote podcast before. This is the first one, though, where we actually are going remote to talk to somebody who already is here at Vortex.
It's like an internal-external.
Yep. It's kind of like Pam Oliver down on the field, but Ryan Muckenhirn out in the field.
Exactly. You've painted a picture. So, and also to paint a picture, we're going to paint a picture of where you guys are right now, and probably no better person to do that than you, because you are there.
What does it look like, Ryan?
So we are in the northwest corner of South Dakota in a very interesting unit called the Slim Buttes, which is a large upheaval of granite and limestone, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. So I'm looking out in front of me, and I can see probably 100 miles of nothing but flat prairie. And the buttes are these white-walled, pine-laden, gorgeous, craggy, very unforgiving features on this landscape. And you can see this Leviathan on the horizon from a very long ways away. So as you're driving in from the east, it just looks like this enormous upheaval of land. And again, it's covered in a lot of jack pine and spruce and cedar and all that kind of thing. It's amazing country. So we're at the base of it right now, actually kind of on some badland region just to the south of the main Slim Buttes region area. So it's phenomenal scenery. I recommend you go out here.
Just looking at what we can see and what you described there, it sounds like one of those spots where you can see forever, but there's a billion places for deer to hide.
Absolutely. And that's been what we've been running into. So, initially we thought the deer were going to be up high when we had gotten out here. What we found is that they're actually down low. They feed out during the evening, and then they move back during the day, and they get into these low cuts and crevices. We have seen some deer up in the timber, predominantly whitetails. But yes, there's a bajillion places for them to hide. It is incredible. It's a lunar scape. There's more cracks and crevices in this place than I had ever anticipated. So it's a very, very fantastic unit. If you want terrain, this is one to get in on.
Fantastic. And so we're here right in later part of September. You guys are chasing mule deer. You said you're seeing whitetail and mule deer, but you're chasing mule deer, right?
The tag is good for any deer, but we are after mule deer. Yeah, our focus is mule deer.
And we should say also this is an archery hunt.
Correct.
Right. So we're doing archery out there. Now, what was the tag draw process for this? How did you get this tag? Is this some monster crazy hard to get tag that you've been waiting for forever, or is this just like you rolled out and got it?
Yes and no. So I have been applying for this tag with a rifle. I have 7 West River preference points for the state of South Dakota. So this has been a long and very arduous process. However, archery tags in the state of South Dakota are over the counter and statewide. So that was a no-brainer. This archery trip was more of a hunt scout mission in preparation for a rifle trip. Although I'll say this, after completing this now, this is our final day, this is addicting. So if you're looking for like super high-level adventure hunts, but don't have a huge budget and don't want to wait for a tag draw, South Dakota's West River or even East River archery tags are over the counter and they're statewide. There's a lot of places you can go to get into.
Can you explain for the people whose second home is in South Dakota, what's East River and West River?
So the Missouri River bisects the state, almost like perfectly east to west. There's a little more west than there is east, but it runs north-south, and you have these 2 parcels of land on either side of it. West River is where you're going to find your mule deer and antelope and big whitetail, and then East River is where you're going to find only whitetail. So when you're applying for various hunts, some of the rifle hunts you have to have, West River points lined out, or you have to have East River points lined out. Actually, there's not a lot of East River opportunity for a non-resident of South Dakota, other than archery and a few select hunts. But West River is where you find the majority of the game and the majority of the adventure.
So now you've rifle hunted South Dakota in a lot of places. What are some differences that you're finding, like with the deer and how they're acting and what they're up to, maybe where they're at, this early season archery hunt versus the later rifle hunts?
Sure. So one thing that Ryan and I are both noticing is that deer are in like a pre-rut phase. They're starting to spar, but they're still grouped up. And that's been the biggest struggle on this hunt, is trying to find lone and individual bucks. And we've been in bucks every day since we got here. However, they're just stacked up with their buddies, and they're very, very hard to approach. The wind has caught us every time we've attempted a stalk, or, another pair of eyeballs has caught us, and we haven't been able to attempt a stalk. So it's later in the season when the deer are in rut behavior, we're starting to see them a little more nomadic and possibly a little more careless. That is not the case on this trip. They are on point. And my hat is off to anybody who takes an early season mule deer, because these suckers are wily. And I'm really hoping that I can come out here sometime during the rut with a bow, because it has been absolutely the opposite experience for me a lot of times with mule deer. These guys are on point out here. As far as where we're finding them, again, we anticipated finding the deer up higher on top of the buttes themselves, in the trees and kind of in those steep draws. And in all reality, all the deer are off the buttes, and they're in the lowlands surrounding the buttes, which is dotted with some state land and a lot of private land. So if you're coming out here, be sure you consult the maps and the plat books. But they're acting like typical mule deer do. They're holing up during the day, hiding from the sun in these deep draws and crevices. And then in the early morning and the evening hours, they're out feeding and browsing on whatever green forage they can, before, retreating into their little hidey holes. So we had to do a slight adaptation to what we thought we were going to do. After day one, it was very obvious. Going up was just going to be overexertion and loss of calories. So we went down. So every day we're getting out of camp. We've got a high camp. We're actually coming to the rim. We're glassing down onto the flats beneath us. And if we see a deer that's stalkable, we then move down off the wall and proceed to pursue. So that.
Have you guys had any opportunities to, and maybe you're even wrapping this up into your description, but like to, ambush deer versus more put the move on them, where you see a buck coming off that bottom and get into a spot where you think they're going to pass by?
We haven't, no. So I think part of that is they're all grouped up yet. So that's the very difficult thing. With them being grouped up, setting up the ambush is very difficult, or generally when we do find them, they've already selected a location in which they're going to bed, and they've got like 5 of them and their buddies in 360 degrees looking at everything. There has not been a single situation yet in which we could have successfully ambushed a deer down here. So they've been pretty wily.
Right on.
And we've had, of all the deer that we've observed, and we've seen really good numbers, we've had one buck that singled himself out, and actually Ryan put an excellent stock on him yesterday, closed the gap to about 22 yards. But they are so on point out here. The buck was bedded. He didn't stand. Ryan actually had to pick up 2 rocks. He threw one rock. It was a little too small. He picked up a second rock and threw it. And the rock hit a cliff face in front of the buck. The buck immediately stood and looked back at Ryan. So I don't know what they're feeding these things out here, but they have got their radar on. So no shot was presented, and that's that. That's how it goes. That's why they call it hunting. So
can we point out the fact real quick too that when Ryan is saying Ryan, he's not actually speaking in the third person.
No,
there is an additional Ryan here. In fact, actually, I found that I've oftentimes been outnumbered as the lone Wisconsinite.
Yeah.
But now both Mark and I are outnumbered by Ryans, because we have MC Ryan, we have Ryan Muckenhirn, and then you're joined by another Ryan. It's a funny story.
Yep. Yeah. So it's this is Ryan Miller. He's a good friend of mine. Ryan and I have corresponded for the better part of probably 7 years. Ryan runs a nonprofit for wounded veterans, fire, and law enforcement to get guys out in the field called Hunters Helping Heroes. And he, at my previous employment, had chatted with me about some other stuff, and we just kind of kept a conversation rolling. And I've chatted with him while he's been deployed, and he's in the service. I should mention that he is in the Air Force. And we've just had this great rapport for a number of years. And finally, we were able to connect and say, hey, let's go do a hunt together. So I picked him up in the Sioux Falls Airport last Thursday? Last Thursday. Yeah. And that was the first time we ever met in person. So,
dude, that's awesome. Well,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Number one, Ryan, not Ryan Muckenhirn, but other Ryan. Thanks for everything you do. That's super awesome. And then the other thing, it's always interesting when you have been talking with a person for a number of years, even like emails, phone calls, and then you finally plan a trip together and you're just kind of, plunked into this environment. Like, all right, like I feel like you, but this is kind of like different at the same time. We're actually hanging out together. So that's cool that you guys were finally able to connect up and go on such a sweet adventure like this one because, like we keep talking about, it looks like some amazing country. It looks like you guys have a little weather rolling in on you.
Yeah, so yesterday we got some pretty good rain, actually. We were up glassing last night, and a little deluge came through there and soaked us pretty good, and then kept going on into the night and then into the early morning. Now, today it's, aside from 30 to 35 mile-an-hour winds, it's bluebird. We've got big puffy white clouds and 64 degrees. Back behind us, it's a little bit darker, but not anything terrible. Weather's been pretty up and down, though. We've had 80 and we've had 48. So South Dakota, if you ever want to see a state that has an amazing variety of weather patterns within a 5-day window, this is it.
I was going to ask, what are you seeing the deer do? Like, as you've kind of been there for a while now with the weather changes, like you said, it's been up and down, and maybe it's just been up and down throughout the day. So there's really no way to get a, cadence on, how they're reacting to it. But have you seen them, do anything in particular where you felt like it kind of triggered some movement or, triggered them that they're just going to hunker down for the day? Or
the cooler temperatures certainly help. Yesterday was a very bizarre day. 2 days ago was a very bizarre day. We had fog that was so heavy that glassing visibility was no better than about 100 to 200 yards.
Wow.
So we were effectively fogged out. If we were on the top from our glassing and vantage points at the top of the wall in the buttes, you really couldn't see the ground except for maybe a couple of small parcels fog would kind of roll through. So we did move down and around and kind of still hunted a little bit for a short while. But what we did see is that during that period, the deer, because they couldn't see either, simply bedded. And the moment the fog cleared, Ryan and I actually took an exceptional nap on top of the buttes there. The moment the fog cleared, it was like deer covering the landscape midday, which has been atypical. When we had a very warm day, it was into the low 80s. The deer were bedded completely. Finding them was next to impossible. We did a lot of glassing. This has been a very glass-intensive hunt. So finding them was very, very difficult past about 9 a.m. And then they'd pick up again in the evening hours, right around 5:30. They'd come out and start to feed out or go water. But most days they're holing up during the day and then getting out to feed, like I said, in the evenings and then in the mornings. So if you're going to plan a stock, best thing that we could or best advice that we can give based on the experience that we've had out here is get out in the morning at about sunrise, find a deer, just watch the animal. They should go to bed and then watch them in their bed for a while. We started noticing that you need 2 or 3 hours of observation on the deer on the bed to determine whether or not it's going to stick around in that bed. The position of the sun agitating them or the wind changing, things like this can force them up out of that bed and set a new bed. Once we've established that they're well shaded and that they're comfortable, then we'll go ahead and make a sneak. So usually that's happening around 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then picking back up again in the evening.
What does a typical stalk look like once you've established that they're pretty much holed up in that bed? What's your normal, where do you start? How far are you usually away when you start stalking? Do you just army crawl the whole way, or what's that look like?
It's been a bit of a hodgepodge. So Ryan just got back from a stalk literally before we started the call. And we had spotted these 5 bucks out in a very low draw. Like I said, the wind is very, very high today. So they were in a low draw, bedded down out of that wind. And so we were at about a mile from where we were glassing to where these animals were. So he had to run out, kind of make a big loop around them and come in from the back to try to prevent the wind from hitting them. We had a south-southeast wind, or I should say it was coming out of the northwest, headed south-southeast. And somewhere in there, the wind switched, unfortunately, and they got it. But we've taken our boots off a number of times. We've been in our stockings, and we both have cactus in our feet now, which is great. Actually, day one, we kind of peeked up over a hill, and there was a 3-pack of bucks that was bedded under some popple trees, and we just happened to be right there with them. So the stock was very short. Unfortunately, there wasn't a spectacular shot presented, and I ended up missing one, but that happens. But it's been a hodgepodge. It's been well earned, though. Every single stock that we've had, with the exception of that first one, that was kind of a, sort of a putt from the rough, if you will. The rest has been calculated, spending a lot of time looking at the terrain, figuring out where we can move, looking at how wind is interacting with the landscape and things like that, and really working out to them. And some of the stocks have been quite long. Like I said, we're glassing from a much higher position than the deer are, and usually we're seeing them at between 1,200 yards and a mile from our location. So we're having to go out that distance and come back.
I think one of the most noble things that Ryan just said was actually a putt from the rough, because I've never heard him use a sports reference before. Ryan, do you know what you just said?
I read it on the back of a Laffy Taffy, so I hope it was good.
The putt from the rough. Well, the Laffy Taffy now gave you a little bit of sports knowledge to finally shoot out there at somebody. Do you know what sport that's from, Ryan?
I believe that is from badminton, which is a French, similar to bowling, kind of.
Incorrect. Pickleball.
Oh, gotcha.
Well,
right.
Well done. So we still
it.
got a little work yet to do, but at least he has the phrase down.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a challenge, a super challenging hunt, but a fair amount of action.
Oh, we've been in deer every day. Actually, from the start of the first day, we kind of picked a spot that we had been doing a lot of e-scouting and agreed, both of us, that it would look productive based on our past history with mule deer. Ryan grew up in Northern California and actually had a history with blacktail and mule deer out there. And
nice.
He's got a whole bunch of those critters, and he heads to Idaho every couple of years to go hunt mule deer as well, and then hunts a lot of deer in general in New Jersey, where he resides now. And so we picked that spot, and we showed up there, and the sun comes up, and it's gorgeous country, and we're tearing apart the landscape, and it's like, bam, there's 7 deer right there within 250 yards, 3 really good bucks, 1 really good buck. And it's been nonstop for the past 5 days. So we've been in deer. I will tell you this, every deer that we've looked at here, we would have been done on the first day in the first 15 minutes if we were rifle hunting. And that would have ruined the whole adventure. So because we're bow hunting and we don't have the ability to take a 140-yard shot, that's extended our stay. I guess we're really enjoying it. But we've been in deer every day, and it has been absolutely action-filled. A lot of movement. I believe we've walked somewhere to the tune of 25 miles, maybe a little bit more. We've gone about 400 stories, according to the pedometer. We've eaten through the majority of our food. And
you guys need to get that buck down.
You were even munching on some food when we first called you here. What was that? Mountain House scrambled eggs and bacon?
Correct. Yep. Breakfast of champions.
Load up, man. Now, I'm curious. You've mentioned one thing earlier where you called it a hunt scout or a scout hunt, which is something that, I don't know, it's a phrase that you don't hear kicked around a lot, but it's a little bit of a tactic, I guess, that you're using out here. Because you're hoping, I don't know if it's, I don't remember if you said it's guaranteed or whatever, but you're hoping to get a rifle hunt out in this same area. And so you're doing this hunt. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but you're doing this hunt where ordinarily you would have gone out and pre-scouted this area for deer. But in a way, this is like scouting, but hey, while you're out there, you got a bow on you, you can get one.
Correct. And that's exactly what we've been doing. In anticipation of drawing the rifle tag, which I would have thought I would have pulled with 6 points, but there's no guarantees. I now have 7 West River deer points for the unit. I should be able to pull it next year. So I know the area pretty well now anyway, at least this part of the region. But yeah, absolutely. If I have the opportunity to get into a region and hunt it while scouting, that's even better. So icing on the cake. Yeah, if I can come out here and take an animal, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to try.
What do you think, is there, because you've scouted a lot, and now you're doing, I guess we're calling it the hunt scout. Is there any added, I guess, this could be just a lame question because the answer could just be, well, duh. Obviously it's more interesting to essentially hunt while scouting.
Yep.
But I'm curious if, that puts you in a different frame of mind where, you're even getting an even better scout? Does that make
No,
sense? What
I
I'm
mean,
trying to say,
I
like, are
was
you getting an even more fulfilled scout out of like you're literally hunting them while you're,
I was going to ask that basically that same
Yeah.
thing. Do you feel like you've got a higher degree of motivation to get out there and really sort it out versus like if you just went out there on a scouting trip to kind of, get the lay of the land?
Well, and good question. So it's kind of a two-part answer, and it's a yes and no thing. So coming out and hunt scouting it, I think, is turning us on to how the deer are behaving more. We're focusing very strongly on the deer, not so much the terrain, which is opposite of what I had done when I had come out on a scouting mission. When I had come out on a scouting trip, I was looking at terrain. I wasn't really looking at deer so much. It was much earlier in the year, or it was early August anyways, and the deer were behaving remarkably different. It was also 96 degrees, and it's currently, in the, low 60s right now. So everything was totally different. The only thing I will say about the Hunt Scout mission is it's localizing me. So I'm not able to cover the ground that I would have in a normal scouting sense. And we're becoming very focused on a patch of land here that we found the deer are very active in. Whereas one ridge over, one cut, or one draw over, there could be something remarkably and totally different. We don't know. We haven't been there because we've been trying to sort this out all week. So.
Yeah, I can see where
good question.
I can see where that's tough though. Like, yeah, you're likely not to cover as much ground because you kind of have a little bit of a bird in the hand situation.
Yep.
There's deer there.
Yep.
You've been watching those deer. You've been making stalks on deer. That's tough to leave.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, also, I can kind of see in the background. I know the listeners can't see, and I can't really tell what it is. Yep. It does appear you've found.
Oh, sorry.
Did somebody find a shed? What is that white thing in the background?
Oh, yeah. Ryan found a shed. He was out there. He's kind of been the shed king. I think he's up to 5 now.
Dude,
on the
that's
weekend.
A sweet buck.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good 4x4 there. He found one last night that had kind of some crabby stuff on it. It looked like it was about to turn into somewhat of a little non-typical, but we found quite a few sheds out here. One really interesting whitetail antler Ryan found when he was out running through the hills, but yeah, it's been good. We at least have racked up a few points.
No, that's awesome, dude. Hey, you brought up something a little bit earlier, and you're talking about that it's a very optics intensive hunt, and every hunt's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Maybe give your lineup of what you guys have been using mostly.
Sure. So this has been an eye-opening hunt for both of us as far as our gear is concerned. So Ryan's carrying a pair of 10x50 Viper HDs along with a 16-48 Razor spotting scope of Generation 1. I'm carrying my 8x42 Razor HDs along with a 65mm Razor Gen 2 spotting scope.
Wait, 8x42s? You can't do anything with an 8x42.
I love 8x42.
I'm just kidding.
It's widest field of view, most stable image, brightest image equals the best image. So when you're looking at that, consider lower magnification. It'll help more than it'll hurt.
It's not a bigger number.
Yeah. or more is better. We all have our opinions.
What Ryan and I have found is we've spent most of our time tripod or binocular glassing. The spotting scope has actually not been deployed as much as I would have thought. I really actually wish I would have left my 65mm Razor home and brought my 50mm Razor, the 11-33
baby Razor,
for the weight savings. Yeah. Because we have walked a lot. We've put a lot of miles on, and I'm a flatlander, and Ryan's way more fit than me, so I've been following him the whole time. He's absolutely kicking my butt. But I think I would leave the 65mm glass home. It has not been required at all. Maybe stepping into something like a 12x50 Razor or an 18x56 Kaibab would be advantageous for this hunt for the weight savings.
Yep.
Most of everything that we've done has been binocular glassing. In fact, I haven't taken my spotting scope out of the truck in 3 days.
Wow.
Making Ryan pack his around instead. So, cause he's way more stronger than I am.
That's a really good tactic to point out. Make your buddy carry.
Correct. Yeah. And he's way stronger. So, but I would say that if I could change one thing, it would be weight. So I came in light, but it wasn't light enough for as mobile as we've been. Dropping a few pounds out of the pack and total gear roster would be advantageous. So on this hunt, the next time, if I bring a spotting scope, it's going to be an 11-33, or it's going to be a higher powered pair of binoculars, like a 12x50 or an 18x56, something along those lines.
Yep.
Yeah. What else did you say? Because I remember we were texting and you said that you were hoping to pare down your kit a little bit. Was that primarily with the optics, or is there other stuff that you just feel you just didn't? Because you're already like you've hunted enough that I think you've pared down your pack quite a bit, and you talk about paring it down every year.
Yeah, I think, and I just love collecting packs so much. I think that I'm going to get a smaller pack, and that goes against everything that Mark Boardman has ever taught me. He's always said that you can always have a big pack and make it smaller. My problem is that if I have that space, I like to fill it. So I put all the neat accoutrements and widgets and gadgets that I feel that I need to survive out here, which has proven unnecessary. The amount of stuff in the pack has changed considerably from day one. So I think a smaller pack, something around 25 to 35 liters, is absolutely more than adequate for this kind of hunt. We both brought lightweight rain gear. We both brought high performance, outerwear and things like that. So I can't really say I would critique too much of the clothing, but the pack weight and the gear, knowing that you've got to carry that bow, they're kind of awkward to carry. Layers and approach this with the knowledge that you don't need a bunch of spotting scope to succeed here, and you'll save yourself several pounds on that alone. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, and that could, the need for the spotter too. I mean, my guess is you guys aren't being super critical of, the bucks that you're after, right? So you're not trying to really, really nail down like, oh, is this a 140 buck, 150 buck, 160 buck, whatever, I mean, you're probably just trying to say, hey, is that a buck we want to go after?
Correct. Exactly correct. Day one, I knew as a relatively inexperienced archer that I'll take exactly what I can get.
Yep.
So watching everything on the landscape here, and we really haven't been like little buck heavy or anything like that. Everything's been respectable. Yeah. We've seen a couple of real slammers and then a few just really nice mule deer, like what I would expect to see out in this region, having hunted it for the past decade or so. So yeah, you don't need the big glass if you're just looking for a frame. If there was a point restriction in the region, that would be another story and a consideration to give in. I've run into that a couple of times hunting in South Dakota. That's not the case out here. It's any deer. I could take a doe if I wish. So yeah, I think to your point, Mark, I'm really not super concerned about trophy quality, just considering the physicality and the challenge in the hunt itself. Getting close to a 2-year-old deer has been difficult anyway. So
big time.
Yeah, no need for the big glass.
Awesome. So, well, yeah, I mean, it seems like this has been a pretty sweet, adventurous hunt. Following you too on Instagram. If anybody ever follows Ryan on Instagram, have we ever already mentioned this before, or Facebook? He has some of the most stoic, eloquent written thoughts about things. I've learned so much about Ryan, about things from Ryan. Let me read one of his Instagram posts. Ryan, you were talking about the cacti out there that are in your feet.
There are several varieties.
If you want a window into the inner workings of Ryan Muckenhirn.
We're going to read this here right now. Actually, what's this latest one that you put up? This is what is this? A cool rock. He wrote a cool post on a cool rock. But here we go. The beehive cactus, a remarkable example of fractal geometry in nature. Consider the shape of the plant evolved through eons of sun exposure, wind, and low moisture. Its pleated surface, radiating and retracting in Fibonacci, perfectly adapted for the very thing it does best. I learned more from Ryan's Instagram than I have from National Geographic.
There's a wealth of knowledge in there.
There is. For the reference, for those of you who now want to follow him, it's RyanM_82.
Gentlemen, you flatter me.
It's beautiful.
It is. It is. I just scroll through that sometimes. Just read it. But it's been cool to hear about this hunt, though, for sure. And looking forward to seeing. You guys got a couple of days left out there, I think. Looking forward to seeing if you guys do put a good stock on one and end up getting one before you head out.
Well, this is the last day, actually. I think that we're calling it after this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been out here we've been hunting since Friday of last week. So we've been on it all week. So
that's getting after it, to hunt over and over and over and have stocks that you're putting on that don't pan out. That's got to be exhausting.
Nope. Good on you guys. You guys
it's exhausting, but I'll tell you what, it goes too fast. I mean, anybody who's like, oh, well, you've got 5 or 6 days, that's ample time to do whatever you need to do. With a rifle, yeah, we would have been done, and we probably would have been poolside at the Days Inn in Rapid City right now, enjoying a cigar. However, we have not. There's not enough time in the day to do as many stocks as we want to do, and I think we could probably spend a month out here and not get tired of doing it, so long as we had enough snacks and Skittles and such.
And for the record, we're not sponsored by the Days Inn
Or Skittles.
or Skittles, but they are delicious.
Indeed.
But awesome, Ryan. So you guys gonna hunt until the last dog tonight, or what's your plan?
I think actually we've got a really cool camp set up. We're probably gonna dog back to that. That's a couple of miles away. We'll tear that down. Ryan's got an early flight tomorrow morning. I got to get him to the Rapid City Airport at probably 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning at the latest, so he can head back to Jersey. But so we'll probably tear down camp here in a little bit and load up and get to Rapid City and take a shower. It's we've been using the baby wipe method for the time being. So another critical thing to put in your kit as a Western hunter, especially if you're going to live like a dirtbag for a few days, is unscented baby wipes. You will be amazed at how rejuvenating you will feel after a run through with those.
It's a shower in your pocket.
It's incredible.
Wow. And now we need to preface that we are not sponsored by unscented baby wipes also, because you guys totally just sold it. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
You should be in marketing, Mark.
I'll put it in the suggestion box.
Great. Well, what do you say to let these guys get going on with their camp tear down and whatnot? What do you say we jump into the last calls here real quick?
Bam. Let's do it.
Bam.
Who's first?
Mark?
Okay, I'll go first. Here's my last call, and you made really good point earlier, Ryan. And I love to rifle hunt. I love to bow hunt too. I like to pick up the muzzleloader occasionally. But just what you described, you guys could have been done day one with the rifle. I'm not trying to take anything away from rifle hunting because, like I said, I just got off rifle hunt a couple days ago, right? But man, it just seems like every time you do it, you want to get your money's worth from a hunt. Pick up that bow, and you're getting the experience, you're getting the time out there. But you're almost in some ways forced to learn a little bit more about the animals themselves, about the landscape. And I'm sure you guys have learned a lot this week that you can apply to that rifle hunt, when you hopefully draw that here in the near future. So that's my last call, man, is that bow can definitely teach you a lot about an area and about the animals that are there.
Yeah, truly.
Ryan?
I would have to say my last call on this is, and I've said this one before, adventure is what you make it. This has been really cool. If you've got a person in your life, like I've got Ryan Miller in my life, and you want to do something out of the box and really get to know another person and really get to know yourself, go do an adventure like this. This has been a low cost, low impact trip for the both of us. The tags are relatively affordable and the distance isn't terribly far. It's just been great to get into the field in a way that I normally wouldn't have been, and it's absolutely changed my outlook. I'm looking forward to making this one an annual. So step outside of your comfort zone, look west. The best things are always west, it seems. It was like 4 last calls. I'm still really excited because I'm mule deer hunting. But,
plus one of them rhymed, so that was really good.
Yeah.
Correct.
West is west. We are also not officially sponsored by the West. Sorry, anyway. Yeah, no, last one here I'll say is hunt year round. Obviously, now that we're in the fall time, we're getting there. It probably won't be a surprise that there are many things that you can do. But I think some of these ones that we're looking to highlight or that we've just highlighted, for instance, here with Ryan, might be some unique ones that you haven't thought of yet. I was just talking with a guy last night here in Wisconsin, and we were kind of talking the topic of hunting and, whitetail hunting right around Wisconsin, kind of a big thing. And he was saying, oh, yeah, it'd be really cool to go out west someday. But I think that everybody has it in their head as the West being just some myriad of tags that you'll never get.
Right.
And it's really surprising once you start looking into it. How many times I've heard guys that are friends of ours, or even guys just right around here at the office, going out there and just getting an over-the-counter tag, like this one.
Yep.
And this, I would say, is like there's whitetail archery hunting here in Wisconsin, which is great. But I think that if you've been doing that over and over and over and over, and you want to switch it up and do something a little bit different, more exciting, you can go to South Dakota and it's over the counter and you can just get out and do it.
Yep.
And I think that's pretty sweet.
I'll tell you one thing on that too, Jim. You bring up a good point. The rock that Ryan and I are seated on right now is part of 77,000 contiguous acres of public hunting land. So we just basically looked at the largest section of green and blue on the map, drove out and did it. So it's not difficult. Just do it.
Bam.
I like it.
Yeah.
Let's just call it on that. How about?
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Well, thanks again, Ryan, for joining us out in the field with Ryan and MC Ryan for helping us record this on Skype. Yeah, that's pretty much all we got. So we'll just end it on the classic bye. How about?
All right.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. Leave us a review or comment down below. We want to hear what you have to say about the show, maybe what you like, maybe what you didn't like, so that way we can make these podcasts as good as they can be. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'll be posting about each episode released, so that way you can go back, find these things, maybe grab a little nugget of information that you can take with you to the range, out in the field, or maybe to the kitchen if we're talking about some good food. So, again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.